Greeting viewers, we are glad that you have joined us today. For the regulars in our programs, thank you for coming back each time. For the first timers, you're most welcome, and we hope you will like it here as well as enjoy listening to our forum today. This is the beginning of a series of programs targeted to women and youth, where we will discuss issues such as, but not limited to, career, economic, and psychosocial empowerment. Before we begin, kindly note the following. This session will be recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel in the coming week. As the session proceeds, please post your questions under the Q&A section. The moderator will direct your questions to the panel at the end of the session. Kindly follow us on social media. That way you will be notified about all our upcoming virtual programs featured by us or our global family. Our handle is at CGC Nairobi for both Facebook and Twitter. I would now like to welcome our director, Dr. Murugi Dirango, to open the session.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pauline. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's event. As Pauline has said, my name is Murugi Dirango, and I'm the director of Columbia Global Center here in Nairobi. CGC Nairobi is the Eastern and Southern African regional hub for Columbia University in New York. The center works collaboratively with Columbia University, faculty, students, alumni, and our local partners to create research, scholarship, and teaching opportunities. Through these engagements, the center also hosts public programming, such as the one today, where we engage in dialogue on pressing issues. Today, Columbia Global Centers Nairobi, in partnership with Women in STEM Leaders Network, RCD Africa, and the University of Bordeaux Montaigne in France, present the commencement of a series of webinars that will address the importance of mentorship for women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. These conversations will be moderated by Ida Nganga. Ida Nganga is the Global President, Startup Innovation at the Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade. She's also the Regional Head, UNESCO Emerging Technologies for Development based in Bordeaux, France. She serves on the boards of the International Center for Enterprise Development and the Global Chamber of Commerce and Industry. She's also the founder of an award-winning regional consortium of experts for development who use technology and engineering as an enabler for achieving the SDGs. She is committed to putting a spotlight on startup development, technology transfer, gender inclusion, stakeholder engagement, and intercontinental collaboration. Because I cannot do justice to Ida's very impressive bio, the whole bio will be copied into the chat box for your review. I now invite Ida to introduce our panelists for today's discussion and to kick off the discussion. Welcome, Ida.
Thank you so much, Dr. Murugi, for that wonderful welcome. And of course, as always, it's always a pleasure to be received with such pomp and a celebration. So I think for all of us, we just feel appreciated. These are some of the things for us as women in STEM really make us feel inspired to be appreciated for who we are. And you have kicked that off on the right notes. And it's so exciting because we are actually talking about the importance of women in STEM. And you as not only a trailblazer and a leader, but also as a woman in STEM, a woman who supports and a woman who uplifts, you have set the tone. So thank you so much for that, Dr. Murugi. Thank you. So for now, I think the best thing to do is to go straight into the session. Of course, we are very excited, not only to be hosted by Columbia Global Centers Nairobi, of Columbia University of New York. We are also very excited, of course, to have the support of the partners. We have the Women in STEM Leaders Network. We have, of course, the Regional Consortium of Experts for Development, RCD Africa. Of course, we have the University of Bordeaux-Montaigne. And this is actually very important because the UNESCO Chair for Emerging Technologies is actually based at that university. So this is very exciting. It's a very exciting time for us to be able to kick this off with such committed partners, people who are already on the path, people who are already delivering a lot of impact. And that is indeed very exciting. Now, as we said, we're going to post the bios of all the speakers because they're pretty long, because these speakers, these panelists are people with such long track records and impactful stories. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to introduce the speakers one by one, and they will give us some insights, share some insights into who they are so that we do not take it too formally, but we get to understand them on a personal level. So I would like to start, of course, with Dr. Wallen. Dr. Wallen, are you on the call?
Yes, how are you?
Fine, thank you, Dr. Wallen. We are really, it's a pleasure to have you on board, and maybe you could just take the floor and give us a good insight into who Dr. Wallen is, because we're going to be talking about your work later on, but we need to just have a good understanding of who you are as an individual.
Thank you, Ida. Thanks so much. So I'm a full-time faculty member in the School of Professional Studies at Columbia University in the Human Capital Management Master of Science program. I teach courses ranging from the intro course to people analytics. I've taught negotiations before, and I have a research program which is pertinent to our discussion today on gender stereotypes. So I've published several papers in that area, one of which focuses on the pipeline to business schools, which is STEM relevant as well. So I'll probably be drawing from that work in our discussion later. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome. That's very exciting. Next, we have Lavina Ramkinson, who definitely is a strong trailblazer, a very powerful woman in STEM on the continent. Really, her name is everywhere. But let her tell us a little bit of who she is, not what people say she is.
Wow, thank you so much, Ida. Truly honored to be here, and thank you everybody for attending. Just a little bit about me. I've kind of always kept a three-pronged approach, which has been very much grounded in economics, psychology, and technology. And for me, those three facets speaks volumes. I've managed to get involved in quite a few different facets in each of those different sectors to kind of really unlock and understand what our true nature is. And I guess that's the underwriting psychologist in me that comes out, the curiosity of human behavior. But in general, I love being the voice for Africa. You know, I'm very passionate about women in tech, women in STEM, women in AI ethics, especially, you know, very much vocal in all those fields. And yeah, just love being here. I think one fun fact about me is I love dance. Absolutely love it to death.
Thank you. I hope we will be dancing after this session. Clearly, we have someone to lead us. Thank you so much, Lavina. Next, we have Edna Carriger. Edna, kindly take the floor. We know also of your work definitely in the internet space, and I think that speaks a lot about your commitment in STEM. And kindly just go ahead and introduce yourselves. As we said, we need to know you on a personal level. Kindly take the floor.
Great. Thank you, Ida. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Edna Carriger. I'm excited, truly excited to be a speaker for this panel discussion on the importance of mentorship for women in STEM. Just a quick background about myself. I have a background in public policy. I'm also a program manager at Immobilis, which is an award-winning digital and technology training institution here in Nairobi. I'm also an advocate for digital skills and inclusion, and I'm also a mentor with the Presidential Digital Talent Program. So I look forward to discussing further on this topic. Thank you, Aida, and back to you.
Okay, awesome. Great intro, of course. And last but not least, we have Anushka Albano. Anushka is not only an African, and that for us as Black women means something different, definitely, because she works in France, actually in Bordeaux. And in her work in STEM, she also has been blazing the trail for not only women in STEM, but women in STEM of color to be heard. Kindly go ahead and introduce yourself on a personal level, Anushka.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Aida, for this introduction. My name is Anushka Albano. I am a student of Bordeaux Montaigne. Before I had a degree in Gabon in linguistics, and also I am very passionate of sports and especially football and also technologies. So this is why I am very happy to be part of this panel to talk about the importance of women in STEM, the importance of mentorship, of course, and also I will add many further information about me later. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much, Anushka. We also, it's just amazing for such a young woman. You have a very high position because you also had digital communication for UNESCO chair for emerging technologies. I think
Yes,
yeah, that shows that I think women, it's a good testimony because women, it's not a matter of age. It's a matter of what you decide to accomplish, just taking the bull by the horns. It's not about age, whether you're 80 years, so never too old, whether you're 18, never too young. It's just that moment when you decide, I think I know what I want and I'm going to go for it. And we are here to encourage you. So thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you.
And we have all you on the call panelists. Yes. And there's another thing that we definitely like to highlight when it comes to making sure that our session is interactive. And this is keeping things flowing, not in a formal presentation way, but as a conversation, just feeling like you're sitting with someone just next to the fireside and having a candid and authentic conversation. And that is what we are all about. So I think we'll go back to Dr. Wallen. Dr. Wallen, kindly kick us off in this discussion. Maybe you could tell us a bit about your work and why you felt like your contribution to women in STEM and the discussion would be of specific importance to you, because we feel that on a personal level, you feel that it's important for you to also lend a voice, which we are amazed and thankful for. So Dr. Wallen, kindly.
Thank you, Ida. Thanks so much. Yeah, so as I mentioned, I study gender stereotypes, and one of the things that a lot of research has noted is that the distribution into different domains, different fields of work, different careers, different jobs has been segregated by gender, or at least predominated by particular genders historically. And that can vary from nation to nation. It could vary from point in time to point in time. And it's vitally important that women and girls at an earlier age feel both comfortable and welcomed, and that there are ample opportunities in STEM domains. And I'm not so sure, based on the current set of gender stereotypes that exist, that is the case, that women and girls feel as comfortable as colleagues of other genders in approaching those different fields. And so, I think one way to address the problem is to increase both early on interests in these domains, and also later on the visibility and representation of women and girls in these areas. And there's a lot that's been written about the pipeline into STEM as a function of gender, and they refer to it as a leaky pipeline. And there's some work that suggests different places along the pipeline where there may be more opportunity or more likelihood that there are leaks. Other work suggests that the pipeline has not been as leaky over the last little while as it was decades ago. And so there's some conflict there as far as what's going on. And so my interest is sort of how do we address interest levels given the current distribution of women and girls into different interests and women into different careers? And then how do we kind of work within the existing stereotypes? So the former one is a longer term problem. It's a longer term kind of solution to address that. The nearer term solution is, if gender stereotypes exist the way that they do, how do we leverage those? How do we work within that structure to help make STEM careers and STEM education more accessible and appear more welcoming? And so, I could definitely talk more about that as well. So I'll hand it back to you.
Absolutely. I'm always very excited to hear from you. Of course, we've had a preparation session before with the panelists, where you came out very strongly, and I think that is, and we said it's just the right time to be talking about this. You're right on time, especially in your research work, and we feel very grateful for that. You've really set the pace for us. Lavina, you also, I think there's a connection with Dr. Wallen's work, because you seem to also feel that the psychological perspective of it is not adequately addressed. Maybe you could tell us your feeling, just give us your thoughts on this, and just expound that for us a bit further.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's so imperative when we talk about the psychological bits in terms of not only mentorship, but just being a woman in STEM and what exactly that entails. Technology has been a sector in particular who's been around for probably about 20, 30 years. And as such, from the get-go, it is always shunned against women, right? It was never truly embracing, even though we got involved, right? We would be invited, but we would be asked to take notes or have, make a cup of coffee for everyone. Those were the early stage challenges that we had to address. But I think, somehow or the other, the resilience that we build up in ourselves and the actual sheer get-go attitude, the spirit of never giving up kind of speaks volumes and kind of really carries you through, especially in the African context. We seem to have quite the diversity, quite the complexity in all our facets, right? So this definitely talks to us, having that never-ending spirit. But there was something that kind of really kept me down the line of thinking around psychology and what that was. And it always said that innovation is literally the mother of all necessities. And that basically, lets one think what's actually needed. And it always starts with you. You, in essence, have that drive, that power, that ability, that trust within yourself to accomplish anything you want. I mean, I recently came across an article where 4 women in, I think it is the EU, that took on the European Union as a whole in terms of their AI policies that they had put together. And they have actually succeeded. They actually kept going, just 4 individual random women that have now gone off and made such a huge impact in terms of what is actually getting allocated and accepted into an AI policy that the rest of the world will then look at. So, our power is always limitless, and we can be and we can do as much. So going back to Erin's work, I absolutely resonate with it in terms of, the responsibility in AI, in terms of the ethical applications within AI, and especially driving the woman aspects. We all have our own narratives and we all have our own stories to be told. But imagine a world where we all sing them and tell them together. Maybe we'd create some harmony.
I just love that, because when you talk about that kind of harmony, and I think for me, it draws upon the fact that we need to, work in synergy. And, because this isolation is actually the kind of thing that amplifies the problem instead of solving the problem. So thank you so much for those beautiful words. And I think it just leads us on to, if I may remember that Edna was also passionately talking about the importance of having a mentor who helps you as a woman in STEM to develop leadership competencies, to gain the confidence that Lavina you're talking about, and also to own your own career development paths in order to achieve set career goals. So this is just a wonderful time for Edna to actually amplify that side. Edna, kindly tell us more about the importance of having a mentor who can do this.
Great. Thank you, Ada, for that. And I'd like to echo the words of Dr. Aaron when he's spoken about, leadership helping young women and helping in inclusion, because that's an area that I'm quite passionate about. And mentorship is a great way to promote digital inclusion when it comes to women in STEM. And I can say that very confident because Ida, you've been my mentor, I think, for 3 years now. And I can tell you for a fact, when I look at all these aspects, leadership, self-confidence, communication skills, many of these I've drawn them from having interacted with you, the physical meetings that we used to have, and also just following you online. So the 3 key things that I'd like to emphasize on, which are really takeaways, is that mentorship really helps. Mentorship goes hand in hand with leadership. So as a women in STEM, and in the view of promoting digital inclusion, we have to be really keen on mentoring as many young women in the area, knowing that it will be a catalyst for developing their leadership skills. The other aspect that mentorship also comes in very handy on is on self-confidence. So it's really important for women in STEM to learn the art of self-promotion, of speaking about what they've achieved in their personal career, in their professional career, in the workplaces. And we have to challenge the norms and the social perceptions around women not promoting themselves. If you're speaking about facts and what you've achieved, then it's valid self-promotion. So there are various programs that we run at Immobilis that help young women boost their confidence. We run a program in collaboration with Grow with Google called Remarkable. We also run mentorship programs through the Adura Digital Program. We also have a mentorship, young women in technology mentorship program called Moppy Girls, which helps nurture young women in technology. The third area that I'd like to point out on, Ida, is mentorship helps boost communication skills, and it gives women an avenue to practice their communication skills in a safe space together with the mentor. So those are the 3 areas that I'm really keen on, and I hope can get to encourage many of us to mentor young women in the STEM field. Back to you, Ida.
Thank you so much for those insights, because you're already doing a lot in this space. And I think it's important for us to be able to learn also from those who are doing things right. Wouldn't you agree, Edna?
I do agree, and definitely having followed you as my mentor and everything that you've achieved, it helps me keep the pace and achieve and sets my goals higher.
Well, that's really incredible, and that's very exciting. Actually, I'm very proud of you because, you've gone much further than I even thought you would, given the time frame, because it was not a matter of whether you would, but just when, and you just made it in a shorter time. You're actually one of the trustees for the Internet Society of Kenya. I think that's just amazing. It's a beautiful conversation we're having here today because we are all we all have been mentored in one way or the other. But right now, we just want to shine a spotlight on why women in STEM, and why is it that at this particular space in time, it's so important to do this? So Anushka, also, are you able to, how can we show girls that no subject is off limits because of their gender? Kindly.
Thank you, Aida. Yes, I think that it's very important also to point out the family level, the importance of the role of the family cycle in the education or the confidence of girls in the future. So as far as I'm concerned, I think a kind of informal mentorship in the family cycle is also important because as a girl goes on education level, they are outnumbered in class, for example, and it shows that the gap between the gender gap between girls and boys became clearly evident. So this is why I think that girls should be more. They need to have more support because it's at each stage in schools they lost confidence on such subject like in STEM, technology or science. Last time I talked with a AI actor in Cameroon, and she's a doctor, I think, and she wants to apply AI for a research. She wants to create she created a tool to find cancer in Cameroon, and she told me that it is a very big problem in Central Africa because more and more girls are not involved in science in school because also in the family they tell us that it's very difficult for girls to pursue such studies, and when you hear this every time, at some point you will lose you will lose confidence of yourself. So I think yes, it's like parents and allies professional should work together also, and to build strength women of tomorrow.
Yeah. Wow. I think it's also, this also steps into, the very many stages that we have in our lives. It's not only the early family life. Anushka, could you also maybe just expound a bit? Does that mean that we have to change a mentor at every stage of our life?
I think it depends because for example, if in the organization, if you have a mentor, it's you have you set up objective earlier. So when you reach those objectives, maybe yes, you can change your mentor because it's in it's a framework. Yeah, it was for a objective. If you reach those objectives, yes, why not? But you can also have an informal mentorship, as I said. It can be for life, like if you have, for example, you are passionate on technologies and you have maybe a parent or an uncle or a relative who can who can guide you. It can be it can be a long life relationship, and also if you have the same interest as a with a professional who can mentor you.
Yeah.
The relationship can also last a long time. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, thank you so much. Perfectly put. And I think that takes us back to Dr. Wallen. Dr. Wallen, you've told us you published several papers on gender stereotypes, particularly pertaining to women in traditionally male gender gender typed contexts. So in what ways do gender stereotypes play a part in girls' and women's entrance into the STEM pipeline? Kindly.
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are a couple of different sources. So the stereotypes that exist within any society, like where do they come from? So there's a bunch of different theories around that. And one of the more prominent ones is by a well-known scholar, Alice Agley, and her social role theory. And the idea there is that we kind of observe the distribution of men and women into different jobs. And we see, so like men are doing, you know, this kind of work. They're doing work with things. They're engineers, let's say, just as an example. Women are doing things like nursing. There's just more of them in nursing. We observe, or elementary school teachers. And then at a young age, we start to associate those genders with the tasks that are required to succeed in those kinds of contexts. And that's one idea of where stereotypes come from. So once that is established, and we have this idea that like women do caring, nurturing, people-oriented stuff, and men do like work with things, and they're kind of analytical, and they're tough and strong, and we get that kind of idea. You know, it's hard to undo that. And we kind of learn that from an early age, and we observe what our families are doing, and we observe what people are doing in different jobs. And then, so we start to get these ideas of like what women and men are like. And when it comes time to do a job that is like in the STEM area, which is usually consistent with male gender typed kinds of things, working with things, for example, it seems inconsistent for a girl or woman to be able to succeed at that kind of thing. And so there's both a descriptive stereotype, like how women and men are, and you know, so we presume, we kind of walk around, and I'm including everyone here because like women do this about women, men do this about women, etc. We walk around kind of thinking, you know, this is what these people are like, what men and women are like, and that they wouldn't be good at doing something like that. And so I think that's one thing that we have to work against, is this sort of presumption that, you know, this is not something that women are good at. And then there's a more nefarious kind of result from that. So even if unequivocally, excuse me, the woman can show that she's successful at that kind of job, thus disconfirming the descriptive stereotype, people like react negatively interpersonally to that kind of thing. And they think like, to have succeeded at that male thing, you must have been male-like, and that's not okay with us. And I think, you know, women and girls they're sort of like, they learn that, and they're in some ways right to fear that, because unfortunately that's what has developed. And so I think what we need in terms of mentorship are both mentors to share how they overcame those kinds of reactions. Like, how do you overcome this idea that having succeeded in an engineering field somehow makes you inconsistent with the stereotype of being a woman? And there are plenty of examples of people who've done this. And by the way, I'm not saying that women ought to have to do this stuff. I'm kind of speaking in the world of like what is, not what I wish there would be.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think that's one headwind that women and girls face. And so I think we need to help them overcome that. And you know, stereotypes take a long time to overcome. And I think the more we can work to changing the distribution, getting more women in these kinds of roles, that can only help, and that can help to change the stereotype in the long term. So that's basically the tenor of a lot of my research, this idea of like what happens when a woman is successful.
Oh my God, I love it. I really love it. And I'm incredibly, actually, I'm really looking forward to getting just a lot of feedback from you and what the findings are, and sharing them also, of course, in our networks, the Women in STEM Leaders Network, and wider than that, because, you know, you've spoken so authentically, and you know, earlier on we had said that it's funny how this session seems to be coming at a very relevant time for all of us. So the authenticity of your message, I think and I believe is what is driving all of us coming together and willing to share from also a personal level as well as a professional level. So thank you so much for that. I think you're leading us also to what Lavina was trying to refer to earlier on the psychology. But Lavina, could you also expound on changing this narrative, mastering the storytelling, because Dr. Wallen is talking about the narrative that has been perpetuated for years, probably eons, if you will.
Yeah,
So
I think it's been.
Continue, please.
I think it's pretty much been around since the beginning of time, to be quite honest. If we want to really stab at ourselves. But this is what gives us the opportunity to really break societal rules, right? We have an uncharted territory of AI where we're still trying to figure out so much. Your voice is definitely one that can add value, right? In whichever dimension. I think, technology has taught us thus far that it can mirror our ethical stances that we take on, right? Whether it's as humanity, whether it's us individually, whether it's us as an organization, or whether it's as a nonprofit, whether it's as a mere community, or even just a family. Technology has shown us that there is a lot that has been brought up to the surface. But the question then is, what are we going to do about it? So, I'd like to sort of touch on the points that Aaron did in terms of bringing up some stats. And I think, we sit in a continent where we have 55 girls that graduate out of school out of 100 boys, right? That's the kind of daily lives that we are living with. So when people ask where can they actually help, there's tons of different areas, right? In one of the most recent Gartner examples or studies that they did in Africa, it showed a very nice comparison between women in AI space, in machine learning in particular, like text analysis and deep learning and the rest of it, versus those of their male counterparts. And it is almost 0 to none to actually show on a bar graph. That is the comparison view. So if this is the society we want to be part of, if this is the creation that we want to keep on, being part of and shaping, then there's many narratives that we can actually change. And that comes in many shapes and forms. One is definitely breaking the labels. The labels in itself that we put ourselves against is something that is, fundamentally flawed. Or do we even need labels? Does it mean that a girl has to do this or a boy has to do that? Does it actually mean that, women leaders in Africa are so underrepresented that does it mean that we need to continue in that light? There's many questions that you could start finding very simple answers to. And it starts with you in terms of having to break these certain boundaries, right? I think very much everything that we do has to be pinned down against support, right? Do we have the sufficient amount of support around us and within our own selves to actually follow through with what we want to see? Can we actually have the ability to speak up? So speak up against the violence, speak up against the gender biasness, speak up against the, the leadership, speak up against, non-diversity and non-inclusion, and where do we show up? We show up because it's for forums like this in terms of mentorship, right? In terms of steering and motivating and helping people to unlock the better part of who they are, right? I think that's the most beautiful thing about being interconnected as humans, is the ability to actually bring out the best or the worst in each other. All somehow or the other, it relates to an improved self. And if you have an improved self, then you're forever gaining something, you're forever learning, and therefore you're forever evolving. And if we're forever evolving, then that means technology would as well.
Wow. Okay, that's deep. Lavina, you always have a way of taking things to a deeper level, right?
Sins of being both the psychologist and the technologist.
I guess so. Yeah, I think that's the nexus. That's where it comes together. Very powerful, very deep. And thank you so much for bringing us probably also to the importance of the self-confidence, you know, and the esteem, because you have thrown it back also to us as women in STEM, and of course with our supporters of women in STEM, of us as women in STEM, that there needs to be also an acceptance that we have to play a part. We need to build on our confidence and esteem. And I think maybe that can take us also to Edna. Edna, what do you think about that? Because if this ties to you and the art of self-promotion you were talking about, because if one is not confident on a personal or even professional level, then how do you develop this skill? And the challenge is also the social perception around self-promotion and confidence. You know, there's all this perception that if you're being too aggressive, then you are really now exhibiting the traits of a man. And, you know, and many women, we've been trying to say, no, we are just being assertive, but that's still not being taken very well. I don't know what you're feeling about this, and in particular, going past that towards another step, now the self-promotion of yourself and your skills.
You're right, Saida. You're absolutely right. Many young women struggle when it comes to speaking about their own accomplishments. And Lavina's also touched on it, you know, when it comes to labeling and young women just feeling labeled and they're unable to speak about their accomplishments. Statistics actually show that when you compare women and men are more comfortable speaking about either the personal or professional accomplishments. So it is really vital for women in STEM to learn the art of self-promotion. So it's something that you can actually learn. It's an art of self-promotion, speaking about your personal and professional life, and it's something that you can develop as a skill to challenge the social perceptions. So one of the reasons why many young women struggle when it comes to speaking about their accomplishments is either because of cultural norms or gender modesty, where you feel you have to be modest because you're a woman, and so it's not okay. You feel you can't speak about openly and confidently about what you've achieved. Also, there's also the aspect of imposter syndrome. So this is very common among young women, especially women in STEM, because it's a male-dominated industry. But it's something that you can learn to overcome. And that's one of the key areas where a mentor can help you learn this skill and learn how to speak about your accomplishments. So one of the ways that mentors and mentorship can help you and can help us as women in STEM to be able to overcome this, mentors help you put down your goals first. So one of the things a mentor guides you on, and that's one of the things either you made me do over time when we used to meet, and you could make me even have some homework and take away tasks and assignments. So a mentor helps you, first of all, write down your goals, and then helps you, map out how you're going to accomplish them. Start even when you're asked, when you go to a job interview, or when you go to a meeting, or when you're in a social situation and you're asked to introduce yourself and what you do and what you aspire to do, you have already gone through that with your mentor based on your career goals, your personal goals, your financial goals, the entire aspect of personal development. So step 2, after you've written down your goals and you've gone through that with your mentor then helps you, communicate that to different audiences. And also it makes you be accountable to yourself and to the mentor as well, because you don't want to let them down and you also don't want to let yourself down. So it's a way of accountability. And in the long run, that becomes a catalyst for you to be very confident with saying what you do, what you're trying to accomplish, and then you now end up, learning how to promote yourself and what it is that you've accomplished.
Yeah, I think you've explained that very well. That's really well put. And these are steps that can help all of us, not only as mentors, but also as mentees. And I love this conversation because it's bridging this gap and showing that all of us can play a role, not only as mentor, but as mentees. And even the mentee can be a mentor to someone else, of course, right?
Right, Ida, right.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, I seem to have gotten it right. Okay, thank you so much for that. I think, and Anushka, is it possible for us to, to connect more women in STEM to role models, because this is what seems to have come out? Are we able to connect women in STEM to role models from different speaking languages to create more impact? Because there's also this barrier where we find that you might be in a specific area, but you probably do not speak the language of someone who might actually be very well placed to give you the guidance that you need at that particular moment in time. So what do we do about this thing about having role models from different speaking, different languages or different communities? You're Francophone. Yes, you do speak, you're bilingual, you speak English and French, but you seem to be highlighting, you have mentioned this before, that you seem to be highlighting that there's a gap. So maybe
Yes,
you could just
Aida,
explain.
thank you for this question.
Yeah.
And as you said, if we want to create more impact as women in the world, we should work as women, not as English-speaking country women, French-speaking country women. We have to come together and create more impact and also, there are many role models in French-speaking countries, English-speaking countries, Portuguese-speaking countries too. So I think we should, for example, have a meeting with women from those different countries, different language, to have their point of view, and also because we said earlier that the lack of confidence in women can be the psychological or educational and also etc. I mean, and so maybe it's not the same perception in those different speaking countries. So we need to share ideas and also help one another to create a huge impact and also to meet the United Nations objectives, because we are half we are almost half the number than men in the world. So I think it's also the key. It's also the key to be and to connect together and work on those areas on STEM technology as working there. And as a Francophone, I know that I had many difficulties at the beginning because I traveled a lot and because I am like, I love cultures, different cultures. I love to discover different communities, and I went in Japan, and for an internship, like in a school, it was very, very difficult to share, because the majority of the teachers there was women, and they want to share many things, the Japanese culture, for example, and show me many things. But I was speaking a little of English, but there was they weren't speaking English, so we have to talk with body language. So the very big question also is, how can we communicate one another to share our ideas? Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much. You know, it just shows us that we are going to have some outcomes from this session already. And, you know, breaking those barriers is one of them, because you said that these women, that the most of the women in your session, most of the people, leaders in your session were women. They were women in STEM.
Yes.
So it just shows us that the role models are there, but we need to find a way of bridging this and just opening up the conversations. But we'll go into that at probably at a later stage. Right now, let's go back to Dr. Wallen so that he can be able to tell us. Dr. Wallen, could you kindly tell us what can be done to address the factors that drive girls and women from pursuing STEM education and careers?
Of course, yeah, it really depends at the point in the pipeline where we want to intervene. I think there are different different interventions earlier on versus later. It looks like from recent work that the bachelor's degree to PhD piece of the pipeline is less problematic than earlier stages of the pipeline.
Right.
So, you know, women are at least the last couple of decades, doing very well in their undergraduate, their university work, and outperforming men in lots of metrics in terms of grades and even career outcomes. And so I think there things are potentially a little more positive. But earlier on, in terms of getting interest going, I mean, I think one thing we could do is to, you know, we can't immediately change gender stereotypes, but what we can do is kind of work with them. I'll borrow the idea of negotiation jujitsu from Fisher and Urey, and there they talk about like using the momentum of your opponent, or the opposite, I don't want to say opponent in a negotiation, but the opposite number, using their momentum kind of to achieve the goals of a problem solving outcome. And I think the same thing can be done here with stereotypes. Like if stereotypes are that women and girls are to be more caring, then maybe we can highlight how basic research in chemistry or biology helps other human beings. You know, and maybe that's like a motivator instead of, you know, isn't it cool to tinker with chemicals? Maybe it's about, look at this good you can do in the world, and kind of go with the stereotype of being a caring nurturer. And again, I'm not saying that I want those types to exist, but given that they do exist, given that they're difficult to change, at least kind of use them to the advantage of increasing the pipeline. So that's one idea. I think that might work for earlier stages.
Oh my God, I love it, because, you know, I mean, this thing of working with what you have, you know, I've always believed in that kind of a philosophy. So for you saying you're coming from a point of strength is absolutely resonating with who I am. Absolutely. And using now the other person's their strength as well, or what they say against you, as a strength of your own, to use that energy to propel you forward. It's amazing. I think something we need to discuss further than this. I'm really, really willing to go into this on a deeper level. Thank you so much. A final question, I think, is around women in AI and women in STEM. I also know that you have been really trying to bring out more women entrepreneurs, women techpreneurs, as well as women entrepreneurs in other fields. Now, let's focus more on the women who are innovators, innovating in the STEM space. What can you say, maybe as a final word? Many of them who are on this call and I'm going to be looking at who might be on the call, but what final word of encouragement can you give them to be bold, and because entrepreneurship is not an easy journey, and it's not for everyone, but it has to be done. You have to innovate around STEM. It really is a must. So what kind of advice can you give us going forward?
Is this for me or Lavina? I'm sorry.
This would be to Lavina.
Okay.
Okay, great question. Thank you so much for that. I think innovation has always been the heartbeat of any society. It's the thing that gives us hope. It's the thing that spurs us, not to lose faith in humanity. So, when we come to talking about mentorship in innovation, it's quite a, sort of complex, but yet very simple kind of, conundrum, I guess. And for me, it's, we are what we resonate. So, very much in the space of be bold, be brave, find a safe environment for you to play around with in terms of all these crazy ideas that you have when it comes to tech. Find the right kind of people, surround yourself by an environment that is supportive of that. Let things play, just be and have fun with it. Innovation is a space where most times, we haven't really created things through consciousness. It's been by sheer accident where most innovations have happened. So, just allow yourself to be playful, be creative, and hopefully we're going to see a lot more in the space.
That's very encouraging, because it also calls on us to draw on our inner, our inner playfulness, instead of being afraid of who we used to be probably before we became who we are today. And I think breaking down those barriers is actually a way of bringing the whole together. So thank you so much for that. And I'm going to throw probably the next question at Edna. Edna, probably it's not the first time that you have had that women have to break down gender roles, or women have to hold down more than one job, the professional, of course, a perspective of things, but also the personal one. What do you think about having this work-life balance? Is it possible for a woman to have a family and raise the family successfully, as well as have a successful career, professional life, so to speak?
Yes, Ida, it's very possible. And from what I always look up to very many women in the STEM space and also in the business industry space. And many of them always say, don't strive for, that perfect balance. It's you just have to learn how to create time for what you feel is really important, and then try to delegate tasks, whether at home, so you delegate tasks, if you're at work, you delegate tasks. That way you won't overwhelm yourself. So it's very, very possible to have a balance, when it comes to work life. The other thing that I hear also very commonly from women that I look up to is some say there is nothing like finding a perfect balance. So don't try to push yourself to that. So just make sure you do what you're able to do. Don't beat yourself up if you find either you have a lot of work and maybe some chores at home have not been done. You shouldn't beat yourself up. There's only so much you can do. But the most important thing as women, we also have to learn how to take care of ourselves. Because women, we're always used to really giving. So you're at work, you're giving you all your best. At home, you're giving you all your best, and you forget about yourself. So learn how to fill your cup first. Fill your cup, let it overflow. That way you'll have enough energy to even serve people better at home and at work. So always prioritize yourself and take care of yourself as a woman.
Wow, okay, thank you so much for that. And as we wrap up, because we're going to now, we're going to be opening up the session to participants to ask questions. Anushka, maybe you can just give us an idea of what can we do to help change these perceived gender stereotypes that work against the interests of women in STEM. And also, Dr. Wallen, I would like you to take that question before we open up the floor to the participants. So let's start with Anushka and then Dr. Wallen.
Yes, I think we have all, first of all, we need to let girls to choose what they want to, what they are interested in. Don't limit the interest of young girls, so then they can have the multiple choice. If they want to do STEM, they want to pursue or to be involved in STEM, let them do it when they are young girls. And if they want to make sports, because I love sports, let them also do the sports. Let young girls choose what they want to do. And if they are interested in anything, don't discourage them, like you will, lower their psychology. This is what I want to focus on, because I think it's it's at the base of what a girl can be in the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. Dr. Wallen?
Yeah, I think making as visible as possible other, women who are like them, who've succeeded, and making those connections. I think networking is hugely important. I think, being able to have informal coffee conversations when we're back having coffee together with people who look like you. And I think we've been focused on women generally, but I think there are different stereotypes around women of different races and ethnicities. And in the late Kathy Phillips spoke about that, or wrote about that extensively, and how there are different stereotypes. So I think it's important that you see people who look like you doing a variety of things, so that you sort of implicitly understand early in life that the universe is open and possible, and that there is no such thing as a boy's job or a girl's job, men's job, women's job. That's a made up construct that we've imposed on things. And I think the less we can have that, and the more anyone could do anything, it's a bit of a pipe dream. It's in a long-term wish, but I think it's possible. These things do change. There are examples of distributions of genders into different jobs changing within countries. And so I think this can be done with STEM. It's definitely possible.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. As we open up the floor, I think it's so exciting to see that you've also set as a reminder that also gender is fluid, and we need to be respectful of that. If someone feels like they're resonating with someone in a specific area, maybe a woman, and they feel that this person represents who they are, that is very much okay. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, wonderful. And that's a kind of, I think, candid conversation we were looking for, and we got it. I'm just so thankful. I'm going to go right now into the chats, and I'm sure that we have a question or two, but probably we can start with Pauline. Could you help me out here, because I might have to scroll back quite a bit to look for the questions or even the comments. Maybe Pauline or Lillian could help us get some feedback on the comments. And our participants, feel free to ask questions. The floor is open. Okay, there's a question for Edna there. I think I could. Pauline, could you help me bring it out?
Okay, to Edna, any input on life balance between STEM career, work, and personal life, especially for single mothers?
Great, thanks Janet for asking that question. So you're asking on life balance between STEM career, work, and personal life, especially for single mothers. Yes, work-life balance is very possible across all categories of women. But like I said, Janet, do not beat yourself up. For most women that I look up to and what I've heard them say is there is no such thing as having that perfect tick off where you're dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. No, and never beat yourself up. The most important thing, Janet, that you have to do is prioritize yourself. That way you'll be able to serve your family better as a single mother. You'll be able to serve your kids better and also your work better. If you don't prioritize on taking care of yourself and now setting your goals and your career, then it becomes very difficult. You'll end up having a burnout. Also, that's where mentorship really comes in. Mentorship, I'd advise you, please get a mentor. There are amazing mentors like Ida who can always, journey with you on your goals. One of the things that you'll really learn from mentors and mentorship is that they are able to inspire you with their stories so that you know where you don't need to repeat the same mistakes. So they're able to share with you their life experiences so that you're always on the lookout, not to either repeat a mistake or you're on the lookout on how to succeed. So Janet, I hope that helps answer you. And also just to mention right now, especially during COVID, many young women have opted to working remotely and they've opted for freelancing work in the gig economy and the digital economy. I know very many women, single mothers, married women, and people who are taking care of families have opted to work remotely to take their skills online. So maybe that's an area also that you can pursue. If you're not able to work online and you have a full-time job, please prioritize yourself. Make sure your cup is overflowing. That way you'll be able to give back to your family. I hope that helps answer you, Janet. Back to you, Ida.
Thank you so much. I hope that answered the question because, yes, Janet Maundu says, thank you. The question was indeed answered. We have another question from Winifred Butinda, that many efforts are being put in place to attract women to STEM. Do you think we need more efforts to also retain women in STEM? Most women in STEM are ditching STEM for less demanding careers. Kindly, which of our speakers feels confident enough to answer that question? Dr. Wallen, you want to take it?
So there's definitely a difference, I think, in attracting to the field versus retaining within the field people. And I think the prior question kind of speaks to this, like at certain points in people's lives, they unfortunately, given the way many employers and societies are structured, they have to make choices between who's going to take off from work and take care of children and all that kind of stuff. And that's part of this sort of retention idea. I think the retention thing is often based around sort of external to interests kind of things. So just like life, for lack of a better term, like life things getting in the way, more than the problem we were talking about earlier, which is how to get people, women and girls, interested in these fields and work against stereotypes that way. I think once you're there, yes, women might face overt discrimination at various points, but it becomes sort of a logic problem, a practicality problem of, the question mentioned less demanding. I don't know that other fields are more or less demanding. They're just differently demanding, and they might allow for different amounts of flexibility. And so I think like learning about, studying what are the things that are pushing women out of already existing and successful STEM careers, that's important to learn about, and then attacking those issues. And I think that could probably help, and I think we have to ask of those women making those choices, like, why are you exiting? Why are you leaking out of the pipeline? Now you've come this far. And I don't think it's any of their doing, I think they're making rational decisions based on the way things have been set up. And unfortunately, they bear often more of the burden than their male colleagues
Right.
do.
True, true. I totally resonate with that. And I think I would also like to throw it out there that, things are as difficult as you make them. So it's really a misconception that one subject is more difficult than the other, because it's just a matter of how the person perceives it, their interest levels. Is it something that they're interested in? Can they put the time and the work that is needed in order to excel? Because the levels are so many. It's not only the entry and introductory levels. You could take it to the master's, to the PhD levels. You could take it to the implementation level, where you actually taking programs out to society and communities and trying to get them engaged, which you know for a fact is not easy when you're the one who carries the subject matter. So this is something, it's a call for us to take things from a very realistic point of view. And I'm happy that you, Dr. Wallen, you raised that, because this conversation needs to go beyond academia. And that's why we are having so many other stakeholders and engaging them. And we hope that we can reach out. There are a number of them who wanted to be on this call. I got a number of messages from some communities saying that probably if it wasn't because of their internet connection, they would have been powerfully been bringing their opinions. We welcome that, because as we say, it's an open space where we want to make sure that everyone feels embraced and understood, despite whatever background you come from, whether academia, whether civil society, whether government or public service, whether private sector, and any other background that one might come from. So thank you so much for that. Maybe can we ask the same question before we close? We ask Lydia to close for us. I can see Winfred Butinda saying, thank you, your opinion is appreciated. Okay, I'm glad that your question was answered, Winfred Butinda. There's a question from Anu. Oh, yes, kindly.
2 more questions and a Q&A.
Yes, please go ahead.
Questions. So yes. One question says, how do you handle women trying to bring down fellow women? That was by Lucia Ann. Yeah.
Good question. Which panelist would like to take that? Anushka, what do you think about women bringing down other women?
As far as I'm concerned, I think you have to focus on your objective, your life, your professional life, your personal life, and let people do their thing. Because if you want to be involved on that kind of thing, you will lose your time. So for me, you just focus on your stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's important to have that level of focus, because the distractions are many, and that's not the only one that might come across your way, thinking that another woman is putting you down. I think there's so many distractions in life. If you don't focus on what you want, how you can achieve it, and when you're going to achieve it, then anyone's narrative can become your own. So I really agree with that. It depends on how you see it, because I mean, there are so many other battles you have to fight. It does not really have to, you don't have to see it as coming from a woman. It might be a woman at that particular instance. If you want to focus on that, fine, but it might not be helpful for you to focus on that. There are others who are focusing and saying that the fight is men. But for us, we are saying it's more than men and women. We are saying it's a culture, a sort of socialization that has been there before us. And yes, there might be the patriarchy, and of course there might be the jealousy and the petty wars from women, which is life. But we want to look at the root causes of this socialization, so that is what we seek to break down. We break down society, the way society has viewed things for a very long time. That is our real battle. It's a bigger battle, but it can be done. Personally, I believe that. Now, maybe I can just say that we have, Pauline, do you have another question before I say, I give a comment from Anuradha, who has sent me a direct message. Kindly go ahead, Pauline, first.
Okay, so it's an anonymous attendee says, hi, I'm an engineering student at the University of Nairobi, I have learned a lot from this session, which has sparked a question in my mind. Does the Women in STEM Leadership help students, apart from mentorship, to get the necessary resources that will steer them upwards? Either that seems like it's for you.
Okay. No, I think for me, I will throw it to Edna, because I've already mentioned Edna before, so she should be able to handle that question. Edna, are you there?
Yes, I am here. So yeah, that's a very good question from the students from University of Nairobi. What I'd like to mention on that particular topic is, women are very competitive in nature. So women in STEM in particular, very competitive in nature. And what I can encourage you in your school, find out if you have either dad years or 4 years who can mentor you, who can show you the direction and even share their experiences with you. That way you'll be able to understand when it comes to competitiveness and also finding mentorship, it's not just limited to mentors who are out here in this space. Even somebody who is in your class can still mentor you, and you can be able to share experiences with each other. I hope that helps.
I hope that helps as well. And if it does, I'm sure she's going to drop some feedback on the chat. I have a personal direct message from Anuradha, and she says that all the panelists have been very influencing and have given wonderful takeaways. She's very thankful that for us for organizing this session, and she says it's wonderful to have heard from all of us all. Thank you, Anuradha. It's a direct message, but I know that you mean it for all the panelists, because you have said all the panelists. You're talking about all the panelists being very influencing and giving wonderful takeaways. Thank you, Anuradha, for that. And maybe I can just talk about, there's also other feedback in the chat. There's one from CGC Nairobi, thanking Anuradha and Eunice. Anuradha, you seem to have been very active. And of course, Eunice, and for their input. And of course, Janet Maundu saying it's an interesting conversation. And she wanted to add to Edna's point that women in STEM, that it's demanding and we need to self-care in order to avoid burnouts. Wow, wonderful insights there. Eunice Nyandat saying it's great conversation and insights. Thank you, Eunice. We have who is this kindly? I think it's Jerry Gitao, definitely being very supportive of women in STEM, not only in her specific field of tech, but also in science, engineering, and mathematics. You see, this is the power of us all coming together. Because before we seem to have had some sort of idea that we are all fighting in silos, in our own small battle zones. But after this conversation, some things are very clear. And some of them are, we do have the support that's needed, whether it's a support from a Francophone woman who is Anushka, whether it's a support from Dr. Wallen, who has published widely. He's a man, identifies as a man. So it's the support really is there. We can also see CGC, Dr. Murugi, being personally on this call, and of course her team, Pauline and Lillian, and not only giving their input, but showing that they can host such conversations. And of course we have Lavina, a trailblazer, woman in AI, saying the sky is not even the limit, because in AI you have not even seen what we are able to do. So these kind of powerful conversations are leading us to understand that we only needed the door to be open for us to come together. The fear begins dissipating when you start understanding that you're not the only one who's undergoing something. And I'm grateful that Edna, as my mentee, is there, because I needed to break barriers on a personal level myself. The fight was so difficult. I needed to mentor for my own personal healing. So I think some of you are going to understand that mentorship might even add more value to you, who's the mentor. or equally as to the mentee. So I'm so excited to have all these great and diverse mentors on the call, sharing not only their wisdom, but their authenticity and their story, which is something that we cannot measure. Usually is not measured when we're having formal conversations. Usually is left out because it's that other bit that is not said that actually makes the difference. So thank you so much, everyone. Kindly let me hand over the ball. And of course, panelists, kudos, well done. I am personally inspired by you. I want to have a personal conversation with you. And I am just so happy and motivated to be here. Our final word from Eunice Nyandat, who in the chat group has said that kudos to the esteemed panelists and to the moderator and to Dr. Muruge, who is hosting us. Wow, thank you so much. Thank you, Eunice, for noticing that. Back to you, Lillian.
Wow. Thank you, Ada. That was wonderful, inspiring, very informative. I'm inspired myself, and I'm really glad that I got the chance to work with you, to work with Dr. Wallen, Edna, and Anushka. Thank you. And Lavina, it's been great.
Yes.
So it's been an awesome process of even preparing this webinar. And on behalf of CGC, I want to say thank you to all our audiences. You are an important part of us. And without you, I don't know what we'll be doing. You're the reason why we exist. And that is why we prepare such webinars for you. And we'd like to say, keep yourself updated with our work and what we do. Follow us on social media platforms at CGC Nairobi on Facebook and Twitter, on Instagram, cgc.nairobi. I've posted them on our on the chat. Keep following us, and I know you will be able to be mentored and also to be inspired by somebody. Thank you so much. And to all of us, I wish you a splendid evening, a splendid morning or afternoon, wherever you are. Bye.
Maybe Lillian, could I possibly just ask all participants to tweet using at CGC Nairobi and their own personal, anyone they would like to tag as well, and to just give their feedback of this webinar. Any thoughts are welcome. At CGC Nairobi, dear panelists and participants, kindly tweet using at CGC Nairobi. You can say anything. It doesn't have to be anything enlightening. It could be just well done to the panelists. It could be just an encouraging word from you yourself. So thank you so much. Kindly, if that is okay with everyone, let's do this. Back to you, Lillian, as you close.
Thank you. Thank you to all. So I think we could say a big thank you. Asante. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye, Lillian.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Asante.
Thank you.